Hello and welcome to the TGH College Hardwood Podcast. I am Joe. With me is Greg, as always, here to recap some college basketball. Not too much because we're still getting back from the holiday break, and then pick some games for the upcoming week. Greg, how you doing?
Good. I'm just trying to. There we go. This is great podcasting, but I'm just pulling up. This is our makeshift banner for those of you that are listening and not watching. I Should we just go ahead and give this banner to Michigan, or do you want to keep going with the season?
I'd say Final Four. Are you saying if we're going to give them the championship banner? Maybe it's a little bit early, but I think Final Four. What are the odds on that? I don't know. Minus minus money to make the Final Four at this point.
Oh, well, we have Dr. Google that can tell
Oh
us
boy.
odds to make Final Four. So why don't you do a little more intro while I pull this up?
All right. Well, as mentioned, we have another week that was maybe not the most high-profile games. People still getting back from holiday breaks and all that. But we're gonna kind of do start with some quick hitters here in a second. Greg, do you have those odds yet?
Minus 145 for Michigan to make the Final Four, plus 140 for Zona, plus 165 for Iowa State, plus 165 for UConn, Duke and Purdue at plus 250, and everybody else is over plus 300. Um,
Not worth it.
yeah. Hey, I do want to timestamp something real quick.
Mhm.
So it's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 5th. We are recording this right now. I know this is maybe going to go a little bit out of order of things, but we both are picking Ohio State to beat Nebraska, and that is a 6:30 tip. So, do you want to just touch on that a little? Like, I mean, it's. I don't even have it in our picks. I had it in our games to watch, but I feel like we should timestamp it before the game starts.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Definitely will not be up by the time the game starts. But Ohio State is favored by Vegas. This is a big road game for Nebraska. Um, Greg, from my end, Nebraska I think has some solid wins. I think we can treat them as a real team. This past week we're going to go over them beating Michigan State. But Ohio State on the road, coming off a holiday break. I think this is one they might be able to get. This is one that Ohio State might need when you kind of look at things going forward. Um, have some guys who can put the ball in the basket with Bruce Thornton, John Mobley. I'm gonna take the home team here. I think I lean home teams early in conference play. There's a lot of teams we talked about last week, Greg, who have not played true road games. There's a lot of teams who just even if they have played one or two road games, they still aren't experienced enough. That's why I'm going Ohio State.
Yeah, I also picked Ohio State. Obviously, that's what we're talking about. This picking an upset of a top 10 team. Um, but Joe, I don't want to get too much into my analysis, but did watch the Michigan State Nebraska game and kind of looking around, and I think Ohio State has better playmakers on the floor, just as far as creation. I think Bruce Thornton is that the Nebraska defense is tough, but I just wasn't impressed at times with their offense. They could definitely got plenty of guys that can shoot, but I just didn't see a lot of creation when I was watching that. Some of that credit goes to Michigan State, but um, I know I was high early on Ohio State, and I just kind of want to. This is where I'm putting my foot down and saying this is the one they got to win to make me feel smart.
Fair enough. All right, we'll go back over the game and see if we have any final thoughts about it before the end of the show. But just that's our pick for these games. We'll see how they pan out after this podcast is uploaded. Greg, some of the quick hitters we're going to go over here. We have, and of course, I just lost my spot. We have Virginia Tech and Virginia playing last Wednesday. In ACC play. It was a thrilling three overtime game. Tech was able to get the win. Now this is big because I think Virginia Tech has not been able to build up a resume too much, despite having a player that we were enticed by early in Nicholas Abdallas. And they go on to lose to Wake Forest later in the week, but they get this win over Virginia, ranked win. So worth mentioning here.
Yeah, I was gonna. That's exactly what I was gonna bring up, man. It was like, all right, like maybe time to start considering them. And I'm not like writing them off, but the momentum would definitely be a lot better had they finished that game. And I think it was only a 3-point game that they lost to Wake Forest. Like that, that's definitely a damper on their week. Um, I'm sure if you told them they could go 1-1 this week, they'd figure they'd lose to Virginia and beat Wake Forest. But it is what it is. You just got to hope they get a couple more wins. And Joe, I think we're going to see a recurring theme here. There's going to be some of those opportunities in the ACC. So I just had that as a quick hitter. I don't want to get too much more into that because I'm sure when we talk about some of this other stuff, we're going to be bringing up some of these other ACC points.
Oh, we definitely will. Let's get to some more quick hitters from Friday, Greg. Michigan beats USC 96-66. We did not think this would be too much of a game, but it's worth noting that Michigan is beating teams by about 30 points per game, which makes them so far this season one of the most dominant teams of all time. Up with some of the legendary teams we've seen before. Perez Johnson had a big game in this one, 29.6 rebounds. They just throw tons of bigs at you. Also some decent guard play, but I think the bigs is what really stands out to me. And USC without Rodney Rice, I mean, we didn't think they had much of a chance anyway, but Michigan gets another win there.
Yeah, this was in our picks last week, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on it just because exactly what you already said. No Rodney Rice for USC. We kind of, Michigan is just blowing teams out of the water. They're even with these huge spreads. I mean, it was a ranked on ranked game, so I felt weird not at least including it in our picks. And I mean, we got exactly what we thought we would. I think without Rodney Rice, USC maybe kind of fades towards the back half of the season. They maybe sneak into the tournament, but I mean, they're going to get rough and tumbled going through this Big Ten juggernaut. So I wouldn't be surprised if we looked up and, they were missing the mark or, first four out or next four out type deal when we get to March.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Michigan on a good track. USC, we'll check in if they can stay on the bubble at some point, but does not look good moving forward for them. Louisville and Stanford played Friday night, Greg. 80-76 win for Stanford. This was a road game for Louisville. I mentioned how, maybe we thought they could struggle on the road. Michael Brown was out for this one. Now, we're going to pick Louisville Duke coming up. Michael Brown is out for that game as well. It was announced about 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago now. And Stanford, Ibuka Corey, I texted Greg about him last week before this game. He had a big game, 28 points. He's one of the lesser known freshmen. There's a lot of freshmen going off right now. It's hard to keep up with all of them. He is, I believe, like top 10 in points per game in the country. Definitely a guy, we don't know where Stanford's going to end up tournament wise, but a guy to get your eyes on. Is he going to stay at Stanford long term and turn them into a good team maybe down the road? Is he a one and done? Is he a guy who's going to transfer? He's a guy to know. And for Louisville, Greg, just really quickly, like there is no the same thing you said about Nebraska. There is no creation. There is no getting into the paint. There's Ryan Conwell and Isaac McNeely throwing up threes when Michael Brown does not play. So that is a big issue upcoming for them against Duke, but also in this game, obviously on the road against Stanford.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, we knew that this Louisville team was a bunch of shooters, but it's different when it's a bunch of shooters and Michael Brown. Like he's the keystone to making that team dynamic. He is that important to that team. So dealing with a back issue, hopefully he comes back. Not going to play against Duke, which is kind of a bummer. It kind of is going to make me, write that Duke game off. Assume it's a win for them. Now, if Louisville finds a way to win that game, we'll have a different conversation about what they can be going forward. That would be interesting. I was telling Joe before we got on, I felt like it was a lot of boring picks by me going into this week, which we are in conference play. It's not necessarily somebody losing to Division II team. It's not that crazy, but there are definitely some results that could be head turning this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Stanford side, they're going to get killed by their loss to Notre Dame last week. 47-40 in regulation. That's probably killing their metrics too. Sitting at 75th in the net. They've spent a vast majority of their season so far in quad 3 and quad 4. I know it's a little early to start talking about that stuff, but it's just going to be one of those things to monitor going forward because this Louisville win is probably going to hold some weight. I think when Michael Brown is healthy, that's going to look like a top 15 win, and it's going to show up on the metric sheet as a good win, whether or not they had to go up against him. So definitely, another check in the box of a team to watch with, go figure, an exciting freshman, putting up big points. So Stanford, just another one of those teams to kind of take a flyer on in the ACC.
Yeah, fun to watch for one player, see how the rest of the team rounds out. if I had to guess, we'll be sitting here and say, "Oh, this is a fun team to watch in the first or second round of the ACC tournament," but that might be where the season ends for Stanford. But we'll see. Maybe they can prove me wrong there. All right, Greg. The game we're going to recap from Friday is Michigan State, Nebraska. We already talked about it a tad, but just kind of going into it on more of a deeper dive. Nebraska wins 58-56. Rank Mast makes a three-pointer under 2 minutes left to play. That kind of breaks the tie and helps Nebraska get the win. He finished with 19 points and 7 rebounds. And I think this is a really impressive win for Nebraska, Greg, because I think Michigan State played really well as well. They shot 36% from three. We said at the start of the year, if they're not going to win games, it might be because they can't shoot the ball. Well, they're shooting the ball better than we expected this whole year, but in this game, 36%. And Michigan State won the rebounding battle too, 45-30. So I guess my point is, this is not some fluke. I should say this is not like they did not like play Michigan State where they're missing all their shots. It's not like a fluke win in that regard. Michigan State played well, beat Nebraska in some areas of the game that matter. Nebraska got the win though.
Joe, to me, the story of this game was the turnovers. I mean, I think there was a sequence of like 3 possessions in a row where a Michigan State player, we're talking unforced errors, right? There's definitely some credit due to the Nebraska defense. They really liked bringing that double down on the post. And there was times where I thought Michigan State wasn't getting the ball. They weren't reversing the ball quick enough to take advantage of that. Obviously, every defensive strategy has, an offense that you can try to attack it with. But some like I can't remember when it was, but I know there was a point in the second half where it was just like step out of bounds, step out of bounds, step out of bounds. And it was like just one of those like guys doing a pump fake and you do that natural, like move your foot back. 21 turnovers is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is like only 9 points off turnovers for Nebraska, but just the lost possessions for Michigan State. Just I think that's what killed them. The Nebraska side, again, I already kind of alluded to it. Good team. I think they're a top 15-ish team. I don't know if they're going to be elite of the elite unless I just don't see a lot of playmaking. Michigan State they're sound defensively, but I feel like I just imagine them going up against like an Iowa State, like a team that's going to like eat you alive defensively and be physical with you. And, Mast had 5 threes in the first half, and that was great, but they really don't have, Jamarcus Lawrence can distribute, but I didn't see a lot of creation. And I'm nitpicking an undefeated team, but if I'm looking long term and saying, where do I think this team's going to be? I think they could probably make a Sweet 16, but that's probably where I'd be leaving them.
I probably agree until we see more. Sam Hoiberg, no offense, but that's your leading assist guy. He's not the guy who's, although he did have who was the game he had the big tip in at the end? I forget who they were playing. Was it Illinois or was it their other? I forget their other win.
Illinois was the Marcus Lawrence 3, so it would
Yeah.
have had to be the other game.
But yeah, he's not the guy who's going to go in the lane and finish in the lane and to kind of draw the defense in to create that way. He does pass the ball well, but like that's not the creation necessarily. I think you're talking about, or at least that I want on a team. So that
Yeah,
is
and let me
something to
be clear,
monitor.
this is a good team. Like
Yeah.
I am just trying to, so we have to play Joe's little game later where we decide who can win and can't win the national championship. And I am not saying I'm ready to write off 14 Nebraska, but like looking ahead, we're going to have to get down to whatever teams. And, I'm just trying to say, who do I think is the most complete? And yeah, Nebraska could get in and shoot the lights out for 4 games, but I don't know that I can trust them to win 6. I'm also talking about a program that's never won an NCAA tournament game. So I'm sure their fans are happy we're having this conversation more than anything.
Yeah. No, I think this is a good conversation to have. The ranked 10th, are they going to finish 10th? Probably not. Are they going to win one game in the tournament? I would say probably. We'll see how they go through the Big Ten schedule. Like they have some big wins, but it's not like they have been all the way tested yet.
I would say at this point, it's probably you can stamp them not getting a tournament win as means it's a disappointing season. I do not
Yes.
think this is going to be like that Clemson team from the early 2000s that started like 16-0 and then missed the turn. I don't think this is going to be that kind of deal. I think this team is good, not great.
Yeah, I think that might be a good way to put it. But there are some years where good teams make it farther than some of the great teams in the tournament. That's why we love it. So again, Nebraska will be a team we'll keep on talking about down the stretch, and Michigan State as well. Greg, a game we're going to get to quickly from Friday, because it's just something we don't usually see anymore, or see almost ever. Cal beats Notre Dame 72-71. It was Notre Dame up three, trying to foul, finally fouling, but because of continuation rules and everything with new college basketball, it is a 3-point shot for Cal that goes in. They make the and one free throw, and they win the game 72-71. Now, there's a conversation to be had about the continuation rule. Should they have fouled here, here, or here on the way up the floor? Why didn't they foul harder? All those things. But then Micah Shrewsbury goes off on the officials and basically just runs them down. Luckily, Notre Dame players held him back. I could see him being upset about this, but this to me spells a lot of frustration from a Notre Dame team that I think a lot of people expected to be a lot better. The talent level on this team is, I think, an NCAA tournament team, and they have not played like it the last couple of years that Shrewsbury's been there. So, um, yeah, maybe he's trying to light a spark too. I don't know, but definitely one of the more like outside of game results, one of the more events that we've seen that is like might give a little bit of life to this college basketball season in a good and or bad way.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, like Google Micro Shrewsbury or look on Twitter, it's going to be the first thing that pops up. It can't understate how crazy this is. I mean, he bull rushes a referee, and the only reason he did not chest bump, tackle, punch is because two of his players got in the way, and you can see the ref. Again, it's a loud arena. The ref turns around and like I don't know. I try to read his facial expression. It's hard to think what's going through his mind because Shrewsbury, after he gets stopped physically, is still going on and screaming at him. I just like so there's two things I want to touch on in this. Are you surprised there was no punishment from the ACC? There was no suspension. I was a little taken aback by that.
I think this player saved him there. I think if they had not stepped in, I think there would have been. I'm a little surprised there isn't, but I guess when it's the end of the day, like it's like, oh, he tried to do something and he couldn't do it. He couldn't get to the refs, so I guess that's why. I don't know.
So okay, all right, we're I at most it was me. It was like I think he should be sat for a game. I'm not going to cry wolf. What I do want to know is we got to figure out this. Unless this is just our way of getting rid of foul up three. Joe, I did text Joe offline about this. I said, does this just mean like fouling up three is gone? The thing I want to nitpick. So if you haven't seen this play, go look at it. I'm not entirely sure it was a foul. He
Hmm.
was obviously trying to the take foul. They were trying to foul up three, and I feel bad for the refs because they're trying to foul. So I think that was an anticipation call from the referee. There wasn't a lot of contact, and everybody's sharing this still image of the player has his hand on his hip. The still image tells you nothing. Number one. Number two, you're allowed to make a little bit of contact with a player. If we called every little ticky tack like that, every player would foul out. I'm just like I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying I would have the conversation one way or the other if we were sitting here and they were like, man, they didn't call that and the three went in. Okay, well, I don't think I'm fine either way. I don't know what we should do about this rule because this is clearly like you can't just say something like, well, there's no continuation outside the 3-point line because then, if a guy actually, you know, gets a good shot off, like you want to reward that. Like if he's able to finish through, I don't know what the solution is. You're smarter than me with this stuff. Maybe you got an idea.
I think it'll just naturally get better as the officials get used to it. To be honest, the NBA, we do see a lot of BS continuation fouls, usually not at the end of the game where it decides things. I think that's where it'll probably naturally kind of sit. Will there be some, continuation shot clock, continuation end of the first half things? Sure. And that's frustrating and stupid. And would I rather there be no continuation? Yes. But
I
this
just
might end up being a good thing because if it does eliminate this foul up three strategy, it is good for the sport. Like I hate it. It's the smart thing to do. It ruins games. It is awful. I would do it if I were a coach, but I hate the product that we're getting out of it. So I think it'll naturally get better because teams will be afraid of the continuation. But you're right. Something does have to kind of like whether it's the officials kind of like locking in and being like, "Hey, that wasn't a foul," or we're gonna have a tighter whistle with this thing at the end, unless they're really trying to foul. There's gonna have to be some give and take and some learning going on with this. And I guess thankfully this happened in a game that, to be honest, completely probably doesn't matter with Cal and Notre Dame because with the way Notre Dame was playing anyway, they weren't making the tournament. So
The only reason we're talking about this game is because of the two things that happened: the missed call
mhm.
or lack thereof, and Micah Shrewsbury going off. Joe, I don't care which way we want to do this. Like, I'm kind of on the side of you of like, hey, I want to see less of a free throw shooting competition and more basketball. I just want clarity because I
Mhm.
very much watched several videos. Fran Fraschilla is tweeting this and that, and it's like I watch one video and I'm convinced it was the right call and it was continuation, and I watch another video and I'm convinced that the foul occurred before the number of steps or what. I was like, I just want clarity, and I guess this is something that should be expected when we the first year where we have it's not considered a rule change. It's a what's the term they use for it. There's like we do some of these tweaks, new interpretations or new
Points of
uh,
emphasis and
yeah, points of emphasis. Yeah, it's like one of those things. Like I know this is a little bit more than just a new point of emphasis, but it's like you know there were going to be kinks to work out. We're both probably glad it happened in Cal Notre Dame and not you know Duke Texas Tech or something. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. If Notre Dame can bounce back, and Shrewsbury. I think watching coaches after this point, do they deteriorate more and do you have more episodes, or is this kind of just the one thing, and that's it? So we'll keep tabs on that. Greg, let's go to Saturday for some quick hitters. We have UCF beating Kansas 81 it's to 75. Peterson did play in this game, 26 points, 6 rebounds. UCF is a team that is now in the top 25. They have one loss on the season so far, 12-1. That was to Vanderbilt. They're a team that has a couple players, just as we're doing quick hitters, not going to really analyze the game too much, but just people know some of these guys. Riley Kugel played at Florida and Mississippi State in the past. Jordan Burks played for Kentucky and Georgetown in the past. So they got guys people are familiar with. I just think a lot of people weren't expecting this kind of start for UCF, albeit, again, still one of these teams who are largely untested, despite a couple power conference wins in the non conference.
yeah, I mean they're still able to put. Granted, you're right. They haven't had a lot of tests so far, but I mean they beat Kansas and they beat Texas A&M. I mean I'm pretty sure I don't have it in front of me right now. And I think Texas A&M is a 2 or 3 loss team. So, you know, nothing to shake a stick at, but largely untested up to this point. Just something to uh, keep an eye on because I certainly would not have put on my bingo card, 12-1 UCF ranked in the top 25 of the Week 10 AP poll. So the only other thing I wanted to touch on is just this Darren Peterson thing, dude. Like I don't know what to think of this at this point.
Yeah. well, explain what you mean.
It's like so he's I don't he's for those that didn't he missed what the last 15 minutes of the he had like 23 in the first half and then basically missed the entire deciding portion of the game.
Mhm.
And they Kansas probably wins this game if he plays, and it's just like I don't I a couple weeks ago it was like all these people saying, "Oh, he's going to shut it down," and it's like when you see something like this where he's not playing in a meaningful game, a meaningful close game, it's like maybe I don't know. Like if he's just going to keep getting nagged by this kind of thing, like maybe it's not worth his NBA future. I don't know. I just like I keep thinking what this story is done, and then it's the same thing. And he's obviously awesome. Like he steps on the floor and he's awesome, but he can't stay on the floor.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've seen something like this. It's like Duke had a couple years where they had guys who were going down with cramps and was it go Esther Cooper Flag had cramps and like hamstring. That wasn't necessarily he was missing key points in the game. Maybe it wasn't as pronounced as Peterson. And with the hamstring and cramps, it's not the easiest thing. But I'm with you. It's hard. I guess I'll say I think he's going to end up getting healthier and healthier as the season goes on. He's going to play. There's always a doubt that he could miss time and save himself for the NBA future. But my guess he's going to do that. Just get better and better and play. It's really good to get this experience of going on a run, possibly in the tournament. That'd be really cool. But this could be a lingering issue, and it makes it hard. I think you're right in the sense it makes it hard to pick these games when Kansas is involved, and it makes it hard to for this team to come together and get a real idea of what they are. Because while they do have some decent stretches of play without Darren Peterson, they are a much better team when he plays. So I'm with you. I would say assume he's going to keep on getting better and better until we hear otherwise. The rumors that his family wants him to shut it down is not great, but I'm not going to take it at its word. So I'm just going to let it play out. All right, another quick hitter, Greg. We have Missouri beating Florida 76-74. Missouri was at home for this one. Talked about a lot of teams going on the road in conference play. Might be tough in the first part of the season. Um, in this game, we had Boogie Fland really struggling, only 6 points. And when you have some of the other guards struggling for Florida, that's just how this game's going to go. And Missouri's a team that has talent. We talked about them a lot last year. Mark Mitchell still on the team, 14 points. Anthony Robinson, 19 points. Maybe they can put something together in SEC play.
Yeah, I still believe in Florida. We're gonna pick one of their games coming up here in a little bit. This is the point where I'm starting to ask myself a question about Mizzou, and I remember seeing when they played Kansas last week, the week before, it was like on the border of like, do I want to include this in games to watch? Do I not? I know they had a little bit of a conflated record. I'm actually trying to see. I'm curious where they're 84th in the net, so they're way back there. But like, I feel like this is going to be a good win. I'm just maybe that says more about how I feel about Florida at this point, but I don't know. I guess I'm just getting to the point where I'm going to start asking myself, like, do I need to start paying attention to Mizzou? That's the only that I am putting myself on notice that I might need to be on notice. That's the only thing I want to bring up with this team because
All
I
right.
just I don't know what to think. I thought they got walloped by Kansas, but you get a win like this, unless you're not sold on Florida.
No, I mean, I think Florida might bounce back. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're going to win the SEC like I originally predicted, but I think they're going to be a solid team and be fine. Not great, but fine.
Okay.
All right, Greg, we have games from Saturday. I will say there are, what, 5 games to go over. I actually don't have too much because a lot of it is going over things we've already talked about with several of these teams. So let's start it off with the first one. Providence beats St. John's 77-71. Jameer Jones says he would have started even if Bryce Hopkins had stayed at St. John's. Well, in this game, he outplayed him 15 points, 10 rebounds. Bryce Hopkins had 9 points, 10 rebounds, but on 3 of 13 shooting. Zuby Ejiofor was the only bright spot pretty much for St. John's, 33 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Now, Providence still very much on the outside of the NCAA tournament look. They have 3 quad 1 losses, 3 quad 2 losses, and just really don't have a resume worth considering right now. Could they get better? Sure. St. John's, on the other hand, I think is the team, Greg, that we need to focus on. But we've already said what we've already said about them in the past is just don't know what the guard play is like. This team has a lot of skill, but maybe they don't mesh together. Maybe they don't have the shooting. And it went from this could be a problem if they don't figure it out to now it is a very real problem. So I could elaborate on that and go deeper, but at the same time, I feel like we've already said this year that it's just weird that this has been such a big issue for St. John's.
Yeah, they're up double digits, multiple points in the second half, and they lose this game at home at MSG. There's entirely too much talent on this team for this to happen. And I get it. We've talked about the pieces maybe don't quite fit together, but there is still too much just physical, raw talent on the team. They have too good of a coach. Like, this is going sideways to the point where it's like, I only wanted to bring this up because, and I know we've already had this conversation about St. John's about, hey, they're disappointing, but I'm ready to start talking about, are they going to bottom out? Is this going to be the Carolina, obviously they weren't ranked number 1 in the preseason, but is this going to be like that Carolina team from a couple of years ago that they just missed the tournament completely? Because here's the thing. Okay, so let's look at their schedule that they have coming up. I'm going to try and pull it up here. But before looking, we already know, like, I don't need their best shot is going to be what? UConn and Villanova. And other than that, there's not really a lot of wins of note, and they just lost to Providence at MSG. So like this thing could go sideways like really quick. It already has, and they've already kind of fallen out of the favor that they were supposed to have. But I want to get your take on like at what point. So okay, so their next three games are Butler, Creighton, and Marquette. Do you well let me establish this as a baseline. If the tournament started today, they're out, right? You
They're
think they're out?
they're probably right on the bubble. One quad one win, 33 in the net. That's usually a team that's right there. I don't know.
So
It's crazy that we're saying they're not automatically in, but yeah.
so their next three games are Butler, Creighton, Marquette. I feel like you got to win all three of those games, like just to have some breathing room. Like obviously, I'm not saying like they have to win out to make the tournament at this point, but like they want to give some breathing room. Like those are three games they should win. If they lose one of those three, like it's going to be real turmoil. If they lose two of them, I'm ready to just say, forget it. I'm done watching this team until they hit a 5-game win streak.
Yeah, the only saving grace here is that it is at Butler and at Creighton. Those teams, Butler's 46 in the net, Creighton's 51 in the net. That's going to be a loss that doesn't look too bad on the resume. This Providence loss, quad three loss, that's like what separates Kentucky solidly in the tournament. Have they been impressive? No. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. 2-5 in quad one. There are no other losses. But if you're St. John's and you have one quad one win, and you have not as many opportunities to get more quad one wins as Kentucky will have down the stretch, and you have one quad three loss already, you're right. If they lose one of these two games, the first at Butler at Creighton, it's probably not the nail in the coffin, but it makes you have to dig yourself out. And can you do that when you don't have many opportunities? Now, Villanova is a team that they're going to play in a couple weeks here. They are 17th in the net right now. They're playing pretty well. Can Villanova stay there to give them another quality win? But you're right. It gets every loss they take in the Big East is going to put them closer and closer to that line. Other than the losses they're going to take to UConn, I would say, just because we don't know how the teams are going to finish.
That's where I'm at. Like, I'm not at the point where it's like they have to win out to make the tournament. That's silly. Like that's we're nowhere near that. But for them to have any sort of breathing room, because they're probably going to take lumps somewhere. Like they're going to lose to UConn probably twice if they, it's one of those things where there's just a lack of opportunity. So, like you said, every bad loss they take from here on out, even if it's not even necessarily a bad loss, a top 50 net, they just did not do themselves any favors coming up to this point, especially considering, what they were expected to be. So, if they want to have any shot at just like taking a deep breath, hitting the reset button, I want to see them win the next three before I'm even ready to like talk about them again on this show.
Yeah, and at least win 2 out of 3 with. You can't lose to Marquette, but at least win 2 of the 3 otherwise. And I think you might be like, okay, maybe we're figuring this out and can make some momentum. It doesn't mean it's good, but that you're right. Like winning all 3 makes you back on the train of like, hey, maybe they're going to get this thing together. All right, Greg, the next game, Virginia and NC State. This was Saturday morning. Virginia goes up early. They end up winning 76-61. NC State looks like they go down early. They can't come back. This is a game where watching it, Greg, it looked like NC State did not want to be there. They did not want to put forth effort. It was pretty bad. Sam Lewis for Virginia, 23 points, 5 of 9 from three. Have to point out Darian Williams had just 7 points. This is during the week where Will Wade defended his guy and was like, hey, he's a great player. The shots will start to fall. They have not gotten the return on their investment, I would assuming from the NIL kind of perspective of things. This is a team that, again, like a lot of these other ones, have issues with effort. We're going to talk about that with Kentucky. We talked about it with St. John's, with meshing together, with having the right fits, and just kind of goes to show you sometimes talent isn't the only thing. We can bet on talent to maybe make our preseason projections, but it doesn't mean it's all going to work out that way. So Virginia gets that win after losing to Virginia Tech. That's big. We know Virginia is a solid team this year so far. NC State's the one where it's like, we kind of saw Maui that was like, okay, maybe they're not as good as we thought. And then since then, we've still gotten these little reminders that it's not just that they have the talent. It's not just like one area. It's just the effort hasn't been good, and Will Wade has not figured out this team yet.
I don't have really much to add, and you kind of wrote it all out for me. The only thing I guess, hey, Virginia is uh, a lot better than I ever thought they would be this season, and what appears to be a pretty loaded ACC, especially in comparison to what it's been the past couple years. I again don't really have much to add, but I just thought of this since we just talked about St. John's. If you had to put money on one of these two teams to make the tournament right now, which one would it be?
C
They both
State,
have very similar stories right now.
yeah, just
And let's be fair. I mean, they may both make the tournament. They probably will both make the tournament. But if you could only put money on one, you
yeah.
know,
It's not a good game to play. I mean, it's NC State for me, 37th in the net, so only 4 spots behind St. John's. They're 1-4 in quad one, 3-1 in quad two. They don't have that quad three loss right now. They have the same number of quad one wins. I think from a basketball perspective, I think Will Wade will get more out of this team. It seems like with St. John's, there just doesn't seem like there's like a path out of it right now. Now, if anyone's going to figure it out, it's going to be Rick Pitino. But if other than Zuby Ejiofor, I don't know how they figure out the St. John's thing. NC State, I think I've seen some flashes. They can mix with the rotation a little bit. St. John's does not have the luxury of kind of messing with that rotation too much. I think with all the NIL dollars they have, I don't see any many other solutions. All right, Greg, moving on to Kentucky and Alabama. And Kentucky's season can be kind of summed up by this game. Alabama, with about 10 minutes left in the first half, starts to pull away and they don't look back. So like a lot like these other games, they win 89-74. This is a game where Holloway had 26 points, Philon had 17 points. And for Kentucky, I think the kind of story out of this game is Nate Oates in his comments after the game kind of pointing some things out. He said the bigs don't pass the ball for Kentucky. Kentucky stat pads against bad teams. Which could be inflammatory, but also I think was very fair. He says the bigs don't pass, so when they pass in the post, we can kind of settle down and just take care of it. So for a team last year, Greg, that had Amari Williams, who was a very good passer, he is in the G League now, who is doing very well passing the ball, helping run the offense. Especially last year when Lamont Butler was injured. Now they have bigs who don't do that, and maybe that's the reason why this Kentucky offense, which doesn't have the shooters that they had last year, but the offense looks different, and the ball is sticking, and the effort doesn't always seem to be there. Maybe that's why. Maybe the ball's sticking too much with these guys, and other guys are getting frustrated. On top of that, Kentucky needs to have more effort. They can't keep on going down in these games by too many points. They can't dig themselves out of the hole. There's a lot of stats out there about how many games Mark Pope has coached Kentucky and how many have they gone down by more than double digits or 15 points, and it's a lot. And quite frankly, at this point, you're still in the tournament at this point, but you have not beat too many great teams. You beat a couple teams that can help the resume. You need to start playing Jalen Lowe 35 minutes. You need to start playing Jaden Quaintance 35 minutes. You need to start playing Otega Owe 35 minutes and shortening this rotation and putting your best players on the floor because it sure looks like this team does not know who anyone's role is, and it looks like the effort's not there. And at least those three guys, you have some star potential there. So, Greg, that was long winded because obviously I'm a UK fan, but yeah, I guess the main thing is Nate Oates and what he said is right in his criticisms.
Yeah. Props to Bama. Again, I know they were top 25 team preseason, but I still was maybe selling a little short on them and finding out that was not a good decision by me. This team does look to be pretty good. I'm going to get to talk about a fun game that they have coming up this week in a little bit. On the Kentucky side, Joey, I mean, you kind of already went through all of it. The only thing I wanted to add was the secret sauce lineup. Who's the five? It's JQ and Lowe, and that power five did not see they only saw like a minute or two together after looking so good when we were talking about them in a recent game, and it's just like that's something I'm not usually the one to be like, hey, I'm going to question a coach's choices, but you got these guys that work well together and they're not playing together, and that is one thing I'm like, I would want to know why.
in a totally different way, Greg, this feels a lot like the end of the John Calipari era because remember where the last year it was like, why aren't you playing Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard more? And like DJ Wagner's fine, but those guys, the stats say they are better when they're on the floor. And now we get to this year, and yeah, there's some injury concerns. Maybe you don't want to play those guys all the time, but Jalen Lowe and having Otega Owe and having Cam Williams and Jaden Quaintance on the floor at the same time, um, it the team plays better. Whether those guys make shots all the time, I don't know. Whether it's the best defensively, I don't know. The team objectively plays better when those guys are on the floor. So that's something you have to do.
I just remember there being a staunch difference between first half and second half when we were talking about that St. John's game. And I know St. John, isn't that great, but there was still a noticeable difference in that second half of that St. John's game, especially on offense. I would love to know why that same, lineup wasn't put out there together. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think they said they play like 6 minutes together in this game or something
It
like that.
was
It wasn't.
something very small, which,
Yeah,
I'm almost at the point where it's like, why is that not your starting five? I don't know.
yeah. That's the thing. Is here's the. I'll give credit a little bit. I do. So first of all, I do think this is like Rick Pitino coaching Mark Pope and Mark Pope getting everything from Rick Pitino. It was all about pressing. It was all about playing 10 players a game. Those '90s Kentucky's teams did that. They shot the three. That worked for that time period. This time period, I don't know if that necessarily works playing 10, 11 guys. And he, more so than John Calipari, who was very stubborn and wanted it to be his way, and it will work a lot of the times, but not all the times. It is working in Arkansas right now. Sometimes maybe you just need an all-time freshman guard like Darius Acuff to come through. That's something we'll talk about later. Um, but I do think Mark Pope might be open to these changes. Now, I do think some of the attitude hasn't been the greatest. People have interviewed him, and it's been like, what's wrong with this team? Why can't we figure it out? And it's been either like these cryptic things, like something happened before the Louisville game, or short answers where it's like, hey, we'll figure it out. We just have to play better. We just have to play better. And at a certain point, Greg, we're both from Cincinnati. You know, we hear this stuff from the front office all the time, and Zach Taylor all the time for the Bengals. We just have to play better. We have to do better. We didn't play well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you want to have a 3-hour podcast tonight? Because we can talk about Mike Brown's statement if you want.
No, we don't need to talk about it. But it's like a certain point, like being the rah rah guy can't always be it, and just like you know, oh, we need to play better isn't always the answer. You don't have to give everyone the specifics, but he better figure out what the heck's wrong and figure it out here soon. They have some pretty good chances coming up, Greg, to I would say get things right, like in a way that like their resume could be helped to. Uh, Missouri at home, very winnable game. Obviously, we talked Missouri needs to win a couple before we really take them seriously. Mississippi State, these are wins that are 84 96 in the net, not going to help you too much. But I think playing competition that isn't quad one, but also not the bottom of the barrel, which has been the rest of Kentucky's schedule, will be good. And then at LSU, this is a top 50 game in the net. That'll be huge too. So a chance here for the next 3 games to figure things out. We'll obviously keep tabs on it as Kentucky tries to keep on playing better and make sure they're still in the tournament in a couple weeks. Next up, Greg, we're going to talk about one of your favorite players. I think I've heard you talk about this player more than any other active player in college basketball. I would say, if I didn't know you any better, I'd say he's your favorite player. Um, SMU beats UNC. We talked about SMU a little bit ago. I think last week, 2 weeks ago. They are now 12-2. They won 97-83. Greg, I don't know how to say this, but against another game where like UNC played well. They won the rebounding battle. They shot 43% from deep. This is just SMU playing amazing. And even like in the game earlier where I said like Michigan State had 21 turnovers. UNC only had 10 turnovers. It's not like it's that much. Like it's not great, but this is just SMU and Boopy Miller putting on a clinic. 27 points, 12 assists. He has 10 of 13 shooting from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3. Corey Washington helped him out, 23 points, 5 of 7 from 3, and 6 rebounds. Again, UNC played well. SMU deserves a lot of credit. And Greg, we mentioned them a couple weeks ago, just the team to watch out for, and they proved it in this game.
Yeah, SMU is a classic all gas, no breaks. We're going to put all our eggs in one basket. We're going to play offense. Don't really need to. We can give up 83 to a team and still win if we're putting up 90. They're averaging like 95 points their last 5 or 6 games. So, the defense, leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, like you said, Carolina performed well on the offensive end, but you know, this is one of those contrasts. We talked earlier in the show about Nebraska not having playmakers, and then you see Boopy out there making plays. Man, it's like that can make up for a lot of things. Like you can have deficiencies a lot of other places. I mean, we talk about it, you get the march, and these guards, man, they'll just win you games. Sometimes that can just overcome other stuff that you don't have. They got a good freshman inside, and Jaden Toombs coming off the bench. I mean, there is a lot to like about this team. I feel like a broken record tonight because up to this point, largely untested. They don't really have any bad losses. Vanderbilt, I feel like we keep bringing up teams, and it's like their only loss is to Vanderbilt,
Yeah.
right? Like that feels like the third time. And LSU, I know, has only got a 2 or 3 loss in the loss column, but jury's still out on them. I don't know, Joe. I mean, like we don't need to spend too much more time on this game in particular. We can maybe talk about it a little more when we talk about the game they got coming up this week, because it's going to be a big one for them.
Yeah, you're right to mention only one quad one win. So it's again another fun team to keep on your tabs and just see if they can make a push towards the tournament. It would be fun to watch that guard play, as you said, in the tournament here. So last game we're going to recap, Greg. We have Tennessee and Arkansas. Arkansas wins this 86-75. Darius Acuff, again, just mentioned it earlier. He is exactly what John Calipari wants in a point guard. 29 points in this one, 4 assists. We had Malik Thomas, 18 points off the bench. Those 2 star freshmen can take this team very far. For Tennessee, it's, Ament having 13, Gillespie having 14, Amari Evans having 16 off the bench on 7 of 7 shooting. Perfect day for him, other than the free throw line. It's a team where I still don't know if they have enough juice to really win. And when you play a team like Arkansas, who made a lot of tough shots in this game, Greg, and just like I don't know what the answer is for Tennessee because they just don't have the firepower to keep up with.
Yeah. The only thing I want to touch on that you didn't is Malik Ewan's ever expanding role with this team. I know you had just mentioned, and we've talked about, Malik Thomas, but it just feels like there is a little bit more depth to this team than I was anticipating. Again, it's a little frenetic for me at times, but it works. So I guess it's kind of hard to argue with. And again, you got a guard like Darius Acuff can make up for a lot of other deficiencies that you might have. I mean, it's just like your nice little band-aid fix all, I mean, I don't know how if you were able to watch all this game or not, but I mean, he's literally getting to the point where he's on the bench on his back, like I am out of breath. I got cramps. Like he's given everything he got.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking about he might be the best Kentucky point guard. I mean, I'm going to leave Reed Shepard and Rob Dillingham out of this because they played a lot more off ball for John Calipari, even though they could be considered point guards. But he's the best point guard that John Calipari's had in at least 5 years. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, even though he played off ball too, um, that's what he needs. This is what he needs to be successful, and he has it now. Like I think there's if he had better point guard play in some of those tournament losses, they wouldn't have him. They wouldn't be there. So good for him.
I just think you don't realize how upset you are because you said he's the best Kentucky point guard first.
Well, true. He's the best. Well, I guess we should say he did not have a good point guard last year. I guess he had Boogie Fland, but Boogie Fland wasn't quite Darius Acuff. But he might be the best Kentucky point guard. Again, so many of them played off ball, but Shea, maybe since Shea too. I mean, going back, I'll have to double check that, but it's that good. He's that good of a player, and that's what he needs. Yeah, high ceiling for this Arkansas team. We talked about them being the favorites maybe after 3 or 4 weeks into the season, and they seem to be living up to that. All right, Greg, we have to get the teams who can win or can't win, I should say, the NCAA tournament. I have a couple more teams to mark off. We're down to 68 teams. We're down to an NCAA tournament field of teams. which is cool. We have to get down to 30. So I have a list, a couple of candidates to get it off the list here before we get to the January. We need to get to that 30 number. Greg, do you have anyone you want to knock
Yeah,
off here?
we'll play your little silly game that you decided you wanted to play and strung me along on.
Hmm.
I do have one that I'm just curious why we haven't written them off yet, and that's Georgia Tech. Is there a reason we hadn't written them off yet?
Uh, to be honest, no. But is there a reason? Is there a reason why you want to mark them off, Greg? Because I don't think they're very good, but they're not necessarily bottom of the barrel.
I mean, I feel like we've I feel like looking at some of the other teams that we've written off, they're like they might be worse than some of those teams, you know?
I think I no, I think they definitely will. I think some of the other teams were more like storyline, like uh, what was it? You marked not saying
Right.
Notre Dame's better or worse, but you marked Notre Dame off after their big loss, and like
Right.
Georgia Tech, maybe they're just expected to lose those games, but that's fine with me. I don't think Georgia Tech's winning at all.
Do it.
All
I
right,
was comfortable with that.
Georgia Tech's officially not going to win the NCAA tournament. I'm going to say Arizona State. I have a couple Big 12 teams to mark off here. I'm going to say West Virginia can't win it all this year. And I'm going to say
For the
Oklahoma
record
State.
show, I do not agree to either of those.
Oklahoma State too. You have something you want to say about those teams? Do you think they're going to win it all?
No.
All right. That's 4 teams this week, Greg. I can go more if we think we need to get down, but that gets us down to 64. If we can kind of get down maybe 5 or 6 more next week, I think we're in a good spot.
It's your game. It's however you want to run it.
All right. So, um, just for those listening on podcast form, there are about 64 teams left. Only 4 mid majors. The rest are power teams we have eliminated, and no SEC teams yet. And that's still trying to figure that conference out. I would have ruled out someone, but I think we can save some of these for next week too. After we get more information from these data points.
You said for those listening on podcast form, are there people watching on YouTube that are going to get a screen share of the list? Because I don't get
Uh,
that.
that's true. That's what we need a producer. We need a producer to put the list up.
I was like, wait a minute. Have we have the budget for this show gone up to the point that that's happening? Because we need to discuss my pay if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, the producer gets paid first. We'll see, but yeah, that's a good spot to land at. There's still plenty of teams. Like last week, we talked about Georgetown not even in the top 100 in the net. They might be crossed off here soon. Some of these SEC teams after we get an SEC play, but we'll have. I think the better way we'll do it is once we get to the end of the year, Greg, we'll have a list of 10 or so teams we can give fans to kind of like, hey, these teams could win the title, and then that'll be more useful than maybe even what we're doing right now. So marking off the teams that maybe we should have marked off before. Greg, let's get to picks for the week. We're going to start it off on Tuesday. We have Georgia and Florida. Greg, who you taking?
I'm going to take Florida and forgive us for being broken records. Georgia's largely untested. They have I know they had one or two. Who did they play? Didn't they play somebody last week that
Auburn.
we didn't? Yeah. Oh, that game went to that game went to overtime. That's what I was thinking. It was a game that they ended up basically stealing. I just like wasn't expecting this draw. I was top dog for Georgia last year on this podcast. When I picked them to have their big week, and they did. I am just much more trusting of Florida at this point, and I know they're coming off a loss to Mizzou, and it might start getting a little tense there in Gainesville, but I'm going to take them to win this game at home. It is a little bit odd with Georgia coming in there ranked and Florida not. I just, as I've seen this team play against UConn this year, I just know there's something there. We know there's deficiencies with the guard play, yeah, but there's just enough there. This should be. I mean, maybe the guard play is just going to be so bad to the point where they'll be a top 20 team instead of a top 15 team. But I can't quit on this team yet, and I know I do this every year where I have certain teams that I just can't quit on. Right now, one of those is Florida. I think they win this game. And honestly, like they're playing a ranked Georgia, but I'm not 100% sure that that's going to stick. It might, but I'm not going to like bet on that.
Yeah, Florida's 9.5 point favorites. I think it's easy to take Florida in this game, and I am taking Florida. Um, Georgia's only road game so far this year, they played Florida State. Yes, Florida State did play Duke tough this last week, but they are not the greatest team. And I think that this is a different challenge. Florida, I think, having time to mesh together and to lock in after the holidays, I think will be good. So I'm going to go Florida here. All right, next one up, Duke Louisville. Greg, we mentioned this already. Michael Brown is out. Louisville is still favored by a point and a half, according to ESPN. That seems a little bit shocking to me, but who are you going with?
Yeah, I mean, as long as Michael Brown is out, it's going to be Duke for me. There's not a lot else to talk about, even on the road. You know, if Louisville wins this game, it's we'll have a lot different conversation about both of these teams, I think. But I mean, you kind of already mentioned it with Louisville with Brown out. It's not the same team. You know, Duke's been a little sluggish at times this year, but I think this is a game they win handily.
I think so too. The last three games scare me. The Texas Tech collapse, Georgia Tech only winning by 6. Obviously, we just ruled them out for winning the national championship, but that's not good. And then Florida State winning by 4. Is the guard play going to come back to bite them? I don't know. I think they still have enough juice to get past Louisville without their best player. And if they don't, then you're right. We do have to have some larger conversations. And again, maybe we've already set the tone for the conversations by saying that the guard play is an issue, but um, that's something we're about to watch. So I'm going Duke as well. I think they have enough in the tank. Texas Tech and Houston is also on Tuesday. Greg, we have some really good conference games this week. Houston's favored by 6.5 at home.
This game gave me a lot of thought. I like the playmakers on Texas Tech, but it's just Houston is too complete of a team for me, top to bottom. They play too good a defense. Kingston Flemings has been awesome so far this year. Again, I know they had to slip up in the players era, but I'm going to take Houston to win this game. I still do love Texas Tech. I love Christian Anderson, JT Toppins. You know, he's going to be on the short list of the conversation for player of the year. You know, I don't think he's ultimately going to win it, but you know, there's some talent to this team, but I just think Houston's too good for him.
I do too. I think the defense will get to them, and if you don't have plenty of options or experienced scorers, that can get to you with Houston. I think they're a team that's going to keep on getting better and better as season goes on, like we talked about. And Greg, I'll give him credit. Lawan Watts is playing so much better and being that third guy who can step up for this team. He had 19 points against Oklahoma State. Um, but I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to have a big game against Houston. So if it's just Toppin and Anderson, I think it's going to be back to like some of those struggles they had earlier in the season. So I'm going
I mean,
Houston as well.
that's the thing. They're going up against a team that plays really good team defense. You know, so there's plenty of help defense out there, and like that just makes it that much harder for these individual playmakers on Texas Tech to get their own.
Yeah, definitely. All right, on Wednesday, Greg, we have Alabama and Vanderbilt. Alabama 13th in the country, Vanderbilt 11th. Vanderbilt undefeated on the season. We've talked about them, just untested so far.
Yeah, I want to be fun. I want to be different, but that Bama team is good. And Duke Miles may not even play for Vanderbilt. He's going to warm up. He's going to try and play, but you know, this is a fun story. You know, them having their first loss here is nothing to shake, you know, their heads at. Again, we've said it like 3 times tonight. Like, hey, their only losses to Vanderbilt, you know. So if that keeps popping up, you know, this should be a tournament team. Definitely surprising that they are. But Tyler Tanner's been great. This team is fun, but it's not enough. Even at home, Bama wins this game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, UCF. That's one of their wins. They've beaten VCU, St. Mary's, SMU. It's not like the worst resume in the world, but it's still not playing elite teams, and that's where it comes down to. I think they might have a chance to beat, assuming they're healthy, assuming Duke Miles is playing, they might have a chance to beat anyone in the SEC. I might pick them against almost anyone in the SEC besides maybe Alabama and Arkansas. At home, I should say. On the road, I think it's a different story because teams lose on the road all the time. But they could be right there with them. But I think I'm going to take Alabama. I think they do have a lot of talent. I do worry about them in a tournament format when we get to the end of the year. but regular season games, they have played well so far this year. Aiden Holloway and Philon together have been really, really good in the backcourt. I think that's going to be tough for a Vanderbilt team who may not be 100%. All right, on Saturday, let's go to Tennessee and Florida, Greg, an SEC matchup that could end up being really big when we get to the end of it, even though both these teams are 0-1.
Yeah, kind of already brought it up, but I cannot quit Florida. I just, again, have liked some of what I've seen in the games that I've actually watched them play. Tennessee, they have their shortcomings, similarities to Texas Tech, where we just don't know how many options there are offensively. Again, at times, they've maybe possibly had a third guy step up. We'll see on that. But I think this is going to be a big week for Florida. I think they beat Georgia and I think they beat Tennessee, which aren't like, you know, those aren't best of the best wins, but like that's getting it back on the right track for a team that, you know, we thought was going to be, top 15 good coming into the year.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going Florida too. Tennessee 0-2 in true road games. They kind of struggled with some neutral site games as well. So I think this team again just needs that third person to step up, and it's harder for those guys. They always say like in the NBA, role players play worse on the road. This game being on the road, I think it's going to make it tough for them. I'm going to go Florida. I don't have the most confidence in them, but I feel like especially if I split the picks, I would get them wrong anyway. I'd pick the game Florida was going to lose, and that would be bad. So I'm picking them both. SMU and Duke is the next game up here, Greg. This one is on Saturday at 2 p.m. right before those NFL playoff games start at 4:30 or so. SMU mentioned 24th in the country, Duke 6th in the country.
This is one of those games that makes me wonder with Duke's guard inefficiency. And I'm picking Duke. I'm not gonna sit on both sides of the fence here, but if this turns into like a drag race to 95 points, like maybe we're next week we're talking about like how good is SMU. I'm picking Duke. I don't see that happening. I think Boozer's going to have a field day. I don't think they have a lot defensively inside that makes me think they're going to be able to stop him, which means they're going to be bringing a lot of doubles. And I guess if you want to make Duke beat you one way, it's try to have the guards do it. So we'll see. But we've also seen how good of a passer and creator Boozer is out of the post. So I think he has a field day. But I would not be the most surprised if we come back next Monday and we're talking about a 98-91 SMU win. I just wouldn't be floored by it.
And he shouldn't be. I think Duke has had issues guarding the 3-point line recently, and that's why they've struggled with some of these teams. And if Boopy goes off, if Corey Washington goes off, they're both shooting over 40%. That could be the game. So I do think that SMU is going to end up losing this one. I think Duke is a pick for me, Greg. I do trust Boozer. They do need other guys to step up. I think John Shire. If you look at some of the rotations, they've changed recently. They're trying to find something that works. Um, I think they'll be fine for this week and probably get at least one of these wins, if not probably two. SMU again. This is one where on the road, they have won one road game. It was over Mississippi State, who has not had a great start to the year, and they've lost one, which was at Vanderbilt. Can they get this road win? I would say, obviously Duke, tough place to play. I think that's what might be the difference. If it was at SMU, might be taking SMU.
Yeah, just one other note on SMU, Joe, since I have it in, some other games worth watching this week. We don't have to bring it up later. They have Clemson on Wednesday. This is a Saturday game, as Joe already mentioned. So this game obviously becomes a lot bigger if they go on the road and beat Clemson in the middle of the week. If they lose, kind of lose some of the luster, could still be talking about, the same, hey, maybe they win this game, but it's just going to be all that much more of a big game if they go to Clemson and win, coming into this game on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so the last pick, Greg, we're going to do is on Sunday. Illinois and Iowa. Illinois 16th in the country. Iowa 19th in the country. Should be a good Big Ten matchup.
I like the stones you have to take this pick. I know Illinois is on the road, but Illinois is another one of those teams that I just think I know. They have had a couple of losses here and there, but I really like the team. it's going to be, this is one of those teams that I'm, again, probably going to pick too far, but I'll live with that. I don't know how much Iowa has outside of Sturts. And again, I know there's been games where he's had plenty of help, but I don't know that he's got dependable help game in, game out. I'm going to take Illinois and win this game.
Yeah, I think just Iowa again taking a lot of home teams this week. I think Iowa can get the job done here. They're 17th in KenPom. Illinois is 8th. I think you put them on neutral floor, coin flip. I would take the team that's at home. I'll go Iowa. I think Bennett starts. I'm with you. I don't know how much they have around him, but I will go with him. And I think that again, this pace of play that they play can mess up some teams, especially in the first half, and maybe they can dig a hole. But I do like this Illinois team. I just think there's got to be games where you see it on the schedule. Maybe this game, and maybe at the end of the month when they play at Purdue, it might be losses, but they might get a win in a big game next month against Nebraska on the road and at Michigan State. It's going to be something where they're not going to be perfect, but this is one where I think they might drop and get back on track for the next couple weeks here. So going Iowa in this one, but should be a fun game nonetheless. All right, Greg, games to watch for the week. You mentioned SMU Clemson. There's a couple other ones you wanted to throw in here as well.
Yeah, I mean, USC, Michigan State, I don't know. It just Michigan State coming off the loss to Nebraska. We've obviously talked about how USC is maybe going to fade a little bit, but I don't know. That feels like one of those, like maybe a slip up game for Michigan State, and then we have a little bit of a different conversation about them. Again, just good midweek basketball. Big week for Stanford. We brought them up earlier in the podcast. They got Virginia Tech and Virginia this week. They got Virginia Tech on Wednesday, Virginia on Saturday. So we're going to see this ACC kind of start to take some shape. There's a couple of unknowns. Definitely think it's deeper, but we're going to start seeing, maybe rolling some teams out, both in Joe's who can win the national title, and just like who's going to make this this tournament picture. What's it going to look like? Are we going to see a 10 team ACC? Is it going to be 6? Is it going to be 7? Is it going to be 8? That's good. That's going to really start to take shape. And Stanford largely untested, but Okorie is a great talent. Would obviously love to see him in March. They have done nothing, as far as a resume up to this point, besides have a terrible loss to Notre Dame. You win both games this week, and I don't know. Then it starts to materialize a little bit for them.
Yeah, I don't think they'll win, but I'm excited to watch him play and get some freshman on freshman matchups there as well with Abdallas. Greg, just kind of note as before we head out here, 33-28 Nebraska over Ohio State in the first half.
I've been watching it the whole time.
So we
10-1.
Yeah, so that's what's currently going on as we're done recording here. Greg, any final thoughts for the week?
I think this is the week that the narrative of what the season is going to look like starts to take some real shape, because I feel like there's a lot of unknowns out there. And I just think we're going to start to get a real solid idea of some teams, which means I can't wait to come back Monday and say, I have no idea what's going on in this sport. Not a clue.
Yeah, I mean, it's last year at this point, I think is when I started mentioning Florida's national championship team. I have a team I think I'm ready to maybe pull the trigger on. Maybe not as sexy as Florida was last year when they kind of came out of nowhere, but this is kind of like the week where we'll see a lot of teams maybe play up to that potential or maybe avoid the minefield of just conference play. So we'll see how that goes. My turn to remind everyone to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. That helps us out. And make sure you leave a review as well. Something that helps us out as we go along here. Also, like and subscribe to the TGH YouTube channel. That helps us out too. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.